Hi everyone, welcome back to Gazbeard's Battles in Battle Pirates. This week we're going to look at Tier 4 of the November event. The same targets will appear in the December event. I had an idea that using 2 Tideseekers with 3 Vendettas and the mix of concussive Gatling guns, the new Garwood Gatling guns, and some of the old Revenge concussive Gatling guns with some mortars, plus a Molotov Maiden rogue crew for all the extra splash and spread, would help me to kill off the groupings of ships in the target a lot faster. Well, we're going to find out how that works. I'm going to do a full Tier 4 set, the 51, 53, 55 and 57, and leave you to judge for yourselves whether it's worth trying to add in some high splash mortar ships. Now, I've used the Vendettas because they can keep up with the Tideseekers. Something like DNXs or Nova Storms would just get left behind and would be completely and utterly useless. Now, for some reason I went to a 71, we just changed to a 51, and we'll see how we get on with this. So, in we go. Just use the loading screen of the first target of the raid to see what the lag is going to be like, and it's actually not bad. Okay, so as you can see in this target, the 51, the ships are grouped in threes, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the Tideseekers to spot for the Revengers and their remote targeting. If their mortars travel fast enough, should take the ships out with 1 or 2 volleys from the mortars. But I think what we're seeing there is that we're just not getting the splash. Despite using the Molotov Maiden's crew, we're just not getting the splash to get the ships other than the one that's targeted. Then again, perhaps the Tideseekers are just killing them too fast, and they're killing them before the mortars arrive. Now, one of the things I've got to try and do throughout all of this is to keep the Vendettas between the Revengers, keep the Tideseekers between the Vendettas and the drones, so that the drones don't get anywhere near the mortar ships. They should, in theory, go right through the set without taking any damage, unless I muck up. Going to be interesting to see if we can achieve that. I usually do muck up with mortar ships. I'm not very good at driving remote mortar ships. That's why I normally prefer to use rhinos. So, the Tideseekers are doing quite well. They're not really taking any damage at all going through these. Starting to wonder if the Vendettas are actually needed. They certainly don't seem to be getting the mortars onto the targets quick enough to do any damage to them before the Tideseekers have killed them. And you can see here just why I want to keep the Tideseekers between the Vendettas and the drones. The Tideseekers take the drones down very fast, even when they're targeting something else. And oh, look at this. Maybe the Vendettas will get some damage. Yay! The Vendettas managed to kill a set of drones. Woohoo! Actually, the drones drove into where the Vendettas had already fired at from the previous set of drones, but, you know, let's give them a credit. Okay, so last couple of escorts and take down the mothership, the Hulk. And, oops, that Tideseeker went suicidal on me. Not sure exactly what happened there. Possibly a bit of lag, but it got out of there pretty much unscathed. That's good news. So the Tideseekers seem to survive quite well in these Tier 4 sets. Let's see how many points we got. I'm a level 93 and I'm hitting seriously below my level, and 12,000 points for a level 51 target. Come on, Kicksar, you're taking the mick. Alright, let's find a 53. let's go hit that, see where we go. Now, at the same time as showing you the ships in action in these targets, I'm actually showing you what the target composition is. And it's probably worth remembering the video and rerunning it before the December raid, just to remind yourself of what you're going to be facing if you're going to be doing these targets. So what we have in this one is we have the Hulk in the centre and 4 static ships close by it, and then outside of those you've got 2 contra-rotating rings, with the inner ring being the Reaver Scouts and the outer ring being the Hades ships, the black ships, and they're travelling in opposite directions as they go around the Hulk. And for some reason they seem to be static here, but certainly by the end of the raid they were definitely travelling and going in opposite directions. You can see the Hades moving. The Scouts are moving quite slow, really. Certainly the Tideseekers make it look as if they're standing still. Perhaps they speed up the longer you're in the target, because I remember by the end of the raid they were moving quite quickly, and it was sometimes a little bit of a pain to try and get out of the way as the 2 rings came round. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to create a gap to let me get into the centre. The sooner I can take down that Hulk, the sooner it'll stop spawning drones as I damage or kill them, and that can only make life easier. Now of course we don't have to worry about submarine dive and surface times because we're using surface ships, and that's one of the great things about the Tideseeker over using purely subs. And just look at the splash on those mortars taking out the drones. So we just open the ring a little bit wider, swing round, and of course we've got to be careful because we've got that oil slick there now, and if we don't watch what we're doing, the Tideseekers could end up underneath the Hulk again. So let's just try and bring them in and hopefully get them to stop. Yeah, that'll do nicely. And here the Vendettas should be able to get some damage, because the Hulk's going to take a while to famous last words. I was about to say the Hulk's going to take a while to kill, so the mortar shells should have time to get through. And you know what? I'm just going to leave the Vendettas standing still and finish this off with the Tideseekers. Just keep the Vendettas out of the way of the scouts that are coming round from the top. And it's actually occurring to me that I'm probably taking more damage on the Tideseekers because I'm having to think about the Vendettas. And if I didn't have the Vendettas there, I'd be able to drive the Tideseekers the same way that I would Apollos and take a lot less damage on them. So unfortunately I did not put the Tideseekers into a tier 4 set on their own and record it, so I can't demonstrate the difference of having or not having the Vendettas in there with them. But even so, it's an interesting exercise, because I think we've pretty much proved that despite the slow movement on the Reavers, if you've got a high damage output ship, such as the Tideseeker doing the spotting, the mortar ships are really redundant. You don't need them at all. So that's the 53 done. Let's go find a 55 and have a look at what that's got in it. How many points did we get for this? 21,000 for that one, which is not quite double what the 51 gives you. And have a bit of a hunt around, find a 55. And there was one next to my base, but I don't know if somebody's killed it while we were in the 53 or not. Yeah, there's one up there. Let's go get that. And this was a recurring theme throughout the raid. There was so many people in our sector that was hitting the tier 4s and the tier 3 targets that we were constantly hunting for them. And next week I'm going to be showing you the tier 5 targets. I've recorded a set of those getting done. Not very well, I must admit. I am not the best of sub drivers, and my Hellwraiths took a pounding doing it. But I've got it all recorded ready for you. So here we are in the 55. This looks like a standard left to right convoy. Get in, get rid of these 2 scouts, and then we can get straight at the Hulk, which will reduce the number of drones that are going to be appearing through the battle. That's always good news. So, will the Vendettas get to land a mortar shell on the Hulk or not? I'm not sure. It was a pretty close call whether the 2 Tideseekers killed it before the mortar shells landed. You notice I've moved one Vendetta up. That's because it's got the Revenge concussive Gatling guns on, which gives it a 104 range with the secondary part of that weapon, as opposed to the 88 that the Garwoods deliver on the Tideseekers. Remember, the Tideseekers have got the -5 range on anything that's concussive. So although the Garwoods natively have got a 93 range, when you put them on a Tideseeker, you've only got an 88, which is the same as any of the Reaver or Scourge torpedoes and the new new Fire Twister torpedoes for the Hellwraiths. So I'm considering whether or not to put the Revenge concussive Gatling guns onto the Tideseekers, because the secondary weapon will then have a 99 range, and it's possible that that will keep me away from the short range torpedoes that the Reaver Scouts carry. It won't keep me away from the remote targeting ones, and there we are. Because I wasn't watching the drones, we've lost the concussive Gatling gun Vendetta. Momentary carelessness from me, and it cost me a ship. And that's another reason why the Vendettas really don't do well in these targets. You know, it only takes 2 or 3 drones to swing round, not get hit by the Tideseekers, and you've lost a Vendetta. My own fault. It's not Kix's Eye doing anything tricky in the targets there. It was just me, mucking up. I admit it. Okay, so we got 28 or so thousand for that one. And let's find a 57. Now, I've had to chop about 3 minutes of target hunting out of the video just to save messing about and waiting, and I've jumped straight to where I've located the 57, and we're heading there. And in we go. Let's see what surprises of joy we've got in this. Now this is a pretty spread out armada. It's somewhat similar to one of the 70 series, I think. I seem to remember this format, this layout for the armada from the time limited campaigns, but also I'm sure I've seen this in a higher level target during the October raid, but there's slightly fewer ships in here, so we'll go get the bonus ship. And of course that drops a massive oil spill. Now here's the drones trying to sneak in, and possible the Vendettas are going to be a little too fast getting out of there. Yeah, the drones have managed to sneak past, but we did kill them in the end. So, unlike trying to use the subtle, sneaky approach and the very edge of range that we do with the submarines, with the Tideseekers we can just batter straight in. Standard blitz assault mode. And they're working themselves quite nicely through this fleet. They're not unduly worried by the remote targeting torpedoes that are coming out when you see those yellow circles pop up. That's what they're indicative of. It means that you're close enough to something to be within range of the remote targeting of the ship generating the yellow rings. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Just go through taking it apart piece by piece, concentrate on one ship at a time. The Vendettas make a last ditch effort to try and get some damage and fail abysmally. And was that the 55 or the 57? That was the 57, wasn't it? So essentially that's the set done. There's the bonus points, 300 and something thousand. Set completed. So as a level 93 player doing a full set of the tier 4s, I get 426,000 points, which includes the bonus, which, you know, if we weren't being penalised for player level, 2 hours 45 repair on the fleet because of the damage to the Vendettas. If we weren't being penalised for player level, that should have been around a 650,000 total points for the set. So I'm losing a third of what the set is worth to a lower level player. So I'm not going to be spending huge amounts of time hitting those this raid. The money points for me are in the A sets, and I'll show you next week my Hell Wraiths trying to do one of them and doing it in a very expensive way. Okay. That's the tier 4 set. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it's useful to you for the December raid. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again next week with the tier 5 sets in my Hellwraith subs. Bye for now.